So let's talk a little about media bias. Now, correct me if I'm misstating your position, but it seems like where you're coming down is that media bias. It's pretty much it's all sort of relative. It's all a matter of perception. Everybody thinks that the media is biased essentially against their views, which everybody thinks their own views are the objective truth.
Yeah.
That's
Well, I mean, in a sense, I think there's definitely deliberately biased media out there that tries to cater to views, specific views, Fox News, talk radio, and there's outlets like that on the left as well. And but my thesis was that I what I set out to do in the book is try to explore how those came about. Obviously, they came about because we have all these new technologies that allow all these new media sources. So then you get all these sources that cater to all these views. But um, you know, at the same time, what's happened is people have gotten less interested and kind of more hostile toward what we would think of as traditional kind of objective mainstream news, like the New York Times or big newspapers or network news broadcasts on TV or CNN, which 10 years ago people used to think of as the most trusted source of news in the country, according to polls, and now it's thought of as biased as any other source out there. So I set out to look into how that occurred, how we sort of became this culture where people think that basically all news sources are biased against their views, and it turns out that it's basically a factor of human psychology. When we believe strongly in an idea, and they've done studies on this with the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, where they took network news broadcasts of massacre in Lebanon 20 years ago, 30 years ago, and showed them to pro-Palestinian viewers and pro-Israeli viewers. These were broadcasts that were meant to be kind of straightforward, objective accountings of the facts that happened. And the pro-Palestinian viewers thought that the news was biased against them toward the Israeli side. The pro-Israeli viewers thought the opposite, and that's happened in many studies across a range of range of subjects. And it turns out that that's because we get so invested in the idea that there's this one psychologist who gave me this quote. This is great. He says, if you think that the world is all black and I think the world is all white, and someone comes along and says that it's actually black and white, that there's shades in the middle, that we're both gonna get angry at that guy. We're both gonna think that that guy is wrong because we have a completely one-sided view of the world. And I think that happens often nowadays, where people are so invested in an idea that they react against even the least biased, the sort of most possibly straightforward account of it.
right. Yeah, I love one of the things that I really liked in here is just that the explanatory power in this for the power to explain what we're seeing now in the cable news environment is just terrific. You said something about weak dissonance. Is it weak dissonance that's the engine of so much of cable talk?
Yeah, weak dissonance is this idea that people really enjoy listening to or watching ideas that they disagree with, but that are so stupid that the ideas are so kind of weak and easier to refute that they feel good about themselves because they can refute those ideas. So, Bill O'Reilly does this all the time, where he picks on the craziest, most outrageous liberals' left-wing views
Right,
that no
like the spokesman.
self-respecting liberal would believe in, but it really makes Republicans, it really makes conservatives who watch that show feel really good about themselves to see this kind of straw man argument of Bill O'Reilly's, to have him pick on kind of the most ridiculous left-wing ideas.
Yeah, and O'Reilly's sort of interesting because you bring up the fact that even though people want biased news, they want news that agrees with them or reinforces their beliefs, but they want to think that they want objective news. So sort of their ideal newscaster is this person who tells them what they want to hear, but then presents it as something that is a no spin zone, for
Right.
instance.
Yeah, no, that's it, because we don't sort of, no one sort of consciously goes out and says, I want to reinforce my views of the world today. Most people really want objective news, but their idea of what's objective is not, other people's idea of what's objective. Their idea of what objectivity constitutes is sort of more is aligned with what they actually think about the world. So that's why O'Reilly uses this no spin zone metaphor, and Lou Dobbs, for example, on his show, he doesn't just he doesn't lie. He doesn't tell you things that are false. He goes out, he has reporters working for him, but they only kind of report the pro Lou Dobbs kind of stories where like immigrants are coming into a town and like beating people up or something like that. And those are those stories may be real, they may be factually true, but on his show you'll only find those stories. So, and people think of them as like, this is the news, these are facts, and these are objective things, and when they really don't sort of constitute like the larger story.